Coach Michael Karras, believe in Pac-12 football. So with the running backs, coming back with the new offense being installed, how do you feel the running backs are adjusting?
The last 4 days, I thought they're progressing. It's funny because I'm learning the offense too, and so we're kind of going back and forth. But I think, X being, his maturity level, I think he's processing the offense, and I think Daniel guys are getting it pretty well. But I'm happy with the first 4 days, but there's a lot to do.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I know it's only 4 days in, but do you just see them, grasping it more, and for yourself as well too?
Yeah, hopefully they transition from the classroom and the application on the field, and that's what I'm looking for the most. The fundamental parts, making sure that they're sound fundamentally, but again, the transition from the classroom and then applying it on the field, that's where I'm most concerned about, and then making corrections the next day on film. And so I think they've been grasping it pretty well. We've been slow enough for them to understand the defense, the offense, but I think they'll pick it up pretty quick.
Doug Haller at The Athletic. Shaun, during the transfer process, when Xavier was coming, when you looked at the film from Wyoming, what did you see from him, and how did you think he could help you guys?
I thought he hit the hole pretty well. I was a little concerned on the long speed, but after a couple of practices, I think he has that long speed. But he was vicious in his running. I thought within that 10-yard, one of the first, second levels, that he exploded really well. I thought he got skinny through holes, and his vision was pretty good. And so when I saw that, I knew he was going to be special.
Yeah, Shaun, we've heard rumors about huddling more, the more pro style, more deliberate maybe in some ways. What can you kind of add on your perspective on what this offense might look like?
I think it'll be a combination of both. I think from the huddling also plays a part with our new quarterbacks in the system. I always was a proponent of making sure the quarterback looked at the other 10 guys and got the command. I think it starts from that point. I think it's a lost art of those guys staying back there and making calls, because then they're not the general of the offense. The general is the guy calling on the side that everybody's looking at. So I think from a perspective of being in the huddle, with the quarterback making the call, and then looking at those guys in the huddle and kind of controlling the tempo of it, I think it has some advantages to that.
We've seen workhorse running backs. Rashad White obviously had that ability. Before him. What's your sort of sense of things this year between Xavier and Daniel or anyone else?
Yeah, those two guys will probably carry the load, and hopefully, knock on wood, no injuries occur. But I'm confident in George Hart as well. But I think again, we'll kind of go through the season, and whoever's the most productive will get more play time, and I think that'll happen within the first 2 games, because I'm still feeling out, especially with Daniel too. He was a plug-in guy a lot of those games. I want to see if he can handle the load himself.
Before we go to Michelle, George Hart's in the hallway right now. Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Can you talk about the styles of these running backs? I know last year you talked about how you had 3 guys and they had different styles. So can you kind of talk about each one of these 3 and how they compare to each other?
Absolutely. X is that slasher guy. I love his ability on a one cut and getting vertical is quick. I think he is versatile in the pass game as well. Kind of Rashad-ish in a way. I think he's a little bit smaller than Rashad, but I think he hits the first and second level with authority. Daniel is that slippery guy. It's hard to see him behind those linemen. I think he has a burst within those first and 2. I think it's different from not having Chip last year, that bigger body. Hopefully Tevin can come along. I think he's, from a physical standpoint, he'll be that guy. It might take a year or 2. He's just a little baby still, but I'm confident that he's going to be productive as well. And then George Hart is our bright guy, always does things right. I think he'll be there ready to go as well. So I'm excited about all the different styles. X is a different style from Rashad. I like the way he just slashes and gets going. I want to make sure that he's physical at the point of contact. I got to see that, because we're only in thud right now, and we don't finish to the ground. But I'm excited for all of those backs.
Coach Jordan Ham, Sports 360 AZ, good to see you. When you're looking at this running back room, how important was it to have a guy like X with a lot of college experience playing in the Mountain West to add to that talented but pretty young room as well?
That was my main concern. You know, I had a new freshman coming in. I had a couple of guys that were plug-in guys. I didn't have the maturity in that. And so when I looked at the transfer board and talked to Coach Edwards, the maturity level needed to be dealt with. I needed to bring somebody that has played snaps before in big games. Now, do I think those other guys will rise to that level? Yes. At the same time, I know from a workhorse standpoint that X did that at Wyoming and carried the load. So I'm confident he'll do that again. But you're exactly right. The maturity level I needed in that room, probably the same way that I did when I brought in Rashad to fulfill that need that we had.
And you mentioned Daniel, seeing how he can kind of shoulder that load more so this year. What else are you looking for him to take that next step over this next couple?
You know, to be consistent, and that's the biggest part. You know, consistent mentally, consistent on the field. If you make a mistake, we talk about what's next, moving on to the next thing, and not dwell on what just happened, and getting better and better and better the more carries he gets. And so, you know, he's been going in 3-4 times. Now, can he carry a load, carrying the ball 6, 7, 8 times in a row and keep that consistency and strength? And so that's what I'm looking for from him.
Robbie Massey, State Press. With all the changes to the team this year, how do you feel like you're going to utilize the run game this year, and how do you think it will change from last year's?
From a selfish standpoint, I hope they run the ball 80% of the time. And we welcome that load. I know it's going to have to be more balanced and from under the gun, and I mean from under the saddle with our new quarterbacks with some play action. But again, I think from a foundational standpoint, it starts with the run, and hopefully we'll be productive in that way.
And what's been the most notable thing so far last weekend and today at practice for your running back group?
You know, it's funny because we talked about how special that room was from a relationship standpoint. I think that relationship standpoint still stands within this room. People helping each other. You know, I miss Jackson. He was a leader from a mentor standpoint in that group, and Rashad, all bright kids. I think X and Daniel has now taken that leadership role, and it's fun to watch those guys grow. Again, they're all competing for just one position, but at the same time, they're helping each other out. And so, again, from the application from in the classroom to the transition to the field, how well do those guys help each other and connecting with each other? And I'm very happy about that.
I got one more, Coach.
Yes, sir.
About a guy who is moving on, but with Chase Lucas, just a guy that you've known for a really long time now that he's going through the NFL draft process. When you think back to when you first met him and how he's grown, just what are some of the highlights that jump out to you?
You know, I think, you know, I've had him since he was 12 years old. And so, you know, my first practice here, and that guy is hooting, hollering, and all of that. So I don't know what kind of antics were. And then coming full circle to his senior year and being the more mature type, I'm excited for him just growing up as a good young man. You know, he cares a lot, and that's the emotional part of it. And he'll get a chance, and I let him know when you get that chance, you know, sometimes opportunities only come once. So make sure that you're doing the right things all the time. And that was a motto back at Chandler was with everybody is make sure you do the right things all the time. And that's him off the field too, and making sure that he takes care of his business from a nutrition standpoint and mental standpoint, and just to be his best. But I'm excited to watch how this all plays out.